Okay, so let's see how long the meeting will be today. Anish is in the plane, I think, back from a trip. So he cannot be here. And we don't have many topics, just one I added. But before that, maybe let's just ask, does anybody have a topic to talk about?
I think Jonathan and I are gonna put up a proposal for KubeCon for like DGDR stuff. I don't know if we need it. There's anything to discuss in this chat, but just as an update.
Yeah, we were talking with Rohan yesterday. He was going to follow up with like the NVIDIA talks in general, and then see how we can collab on some submissions. Jonathan, did you hear back from Rohan?
No, I added Hannah to the chat and I brought it up with I brought it up with her for the idea of the talk, and she seems interested in being a co-speaker. But I think we can just try to get that sorted as soon as possible. If either you could reach out to Rohan, Anna, and see if we're clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, I think the content should be mostly the same. It's just who wants to go give a talk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, exciting.
Very good. I have a related question. There's this big issue about the issues in DGDR, this one. And Jonathan, you and other people from Microsoft did some investigations. It's the last comment there. So if you can report about that, I'm very curious about the work.
Yeah, let me pull up the link. Was it this issue? I opened tracking bugs for.
Yes.
DGD?
Yeah, this is the umbrella issue. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was out last week, so I just wanted. So I think Ashna was working on doing some testing as well. But was there any question you had about it in particular?
Oh, I'm just curious about background and what the next steps are. Like what I read, there were 5 tests, right? 7 tests and 5 were failing or something. So like the majority was basically not working.
Yeah. So this is based off of the feedback we got from at least myself and NVIDIA QA on DGDR following the 1.0 release. So we found that when I was trying to do a demo, a lot of the stuff didn't work for larger models or a lot of the recipes. So my thinking was that like we could go through all the recipes and examples and other references in the docs and make sure that DGDR works with all of those. So that's sort of where I began exploring and just trying to test out all these different configurations. So like for every recipe we have, can I make a DGDR with this that works? And if we found that there's a gap in a lot of places where it doesn't work, so we're kind of investigating why. And that's sort of what the umbrella issue is tracking.
And are you adding like new issues? Is the analysis done already for those 5 failing tests out of 7?
So I think I mean obviously you can't fix every bug with DGDR. So I think the criteria for closing this issue would be that like once we have the once we have like each of the recipes in the folder working with DGDR, I think we can say that we're close enough to parity. And then the next step would be to add some tests, end-to-end tests, to test each of those scenarios to make sure we don't have any sort of regression. But right now, we don't really have much in terms of E2E tests for DGDR. Sartosh?
Is the issue still valid with the redesign, or do we need to think about some things different?
Could you give me a bit of context about the redesign? I think that might have happened when I was out.
Yeah, I think that we had some discussions about the redesign for the AI configurator piece, and then see how I think one aspect was like the user can provide traces. Hannah might be able to speak better on this one. I don't have all the details. I think Davey and Ashna has been working on this more. So there is some logic changes in AI configurator too.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's going to affect the bugs or not. So just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. Okay.
Hannah, do you know?
We can close it out, I think.
Let me double check.
I'm guessing that we will need Hong Kwan to be able to answer that question.
Yeah.
Because I think the golden path we want, like the ideal solution, is that we won't have like any recipes, right? So that's the optimal solution. And then anything on the DG going through the DGDR will get us the optimal configurations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the plan. And it should be a lot better with like replay. So with replay, it's like a simulator. So it's even like the thorough profiling will be massively sped up, and it'll be without needing any real deployments.
But replay is only valid if you're provided the traces. Is that right?
Yes, but yeah, the traces, there's like I think 4 different kinds of traces that can be used. So you could use like real traces, or you could use synthetic, I think, as well.
Ah, okay.
Or like workload summaries. And I think Hong Kwan and Rudy and like some of the other engineers, their plan is to update the front end so that once you have real runs, you can like essentially export out that data and then use it. Like just basically use it on itself.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think the thing with this issue is isn't so much about features, but ensuring that what we delivered works.
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to do is make sure that what we have like does what we say it will do. So if you look at like what Sartosh said about the recipes, I can share. This is essentially the sort of support matrix I had in mind. So each of these are the combinations of recipes in our folder, and this is like a combination of model on the back end, and I also noted if they're in the AIC support matrix for rapid testing. So I think for like a thorough sweep, we should, in order to have DGDR at parity with DGD, each of these should be able to be deployed with DGDR. So what we were doing is essentially trying to go through these and see that they all work. And we found a lot of bugs. I got the Quen 235 ones working, but there's a ton of different combinations, and DSR1 I think is pretty far from working, or we're definitely pretty stuck on that for a while. So I think that what we want is to ensure that all of these work, no matter what, if we add more features or not. And once we get that working, we want to have some way to ensure that it stays working, meaning like adding some sort of end-to-end test suite. Does that track with what you guys had in mind or thought this issue was about?
I think so.
Okay.
I have a question here. So could we do kind of offline tests, like without even GPUs? Is anything like that possible? Like just checking the output of our operators, whether they match what we expect?
Yeah, so there's a couple of parts of this. I also commented in this thread. So there's several points of failure. One is like failure to generate the candidates. This we can test offline, because if it's in the AIC matrix, we can just see that if it fails, it'll fail fast. The one that's a bit more difficult is like failure to run the deployments. So if we're doing thorough mode and we're trying to run it and it fails or it times out, it'll just be stuck timing out for each of the candidates. Like if it hits it'll hit for one, and then it'll try the next one and hit and again and again. So that's another point of failure. And then the last one is that if it generates a DGD and that DGD fails to run, that's something we can't really test offline. So that one would require that essentially we prove that the DGD we get out of the output from the profiling will actually run on your hardware and not hit it out of memory. Last thing is the thing with this part is that for the ones that aren't in the matrix that have thorough mode, those are going to take a while to test. And maybe the new replay stuff addresses that, but for DSR1, we don't have the rapid profiling. So in order to test the profiling creation of candidates, it would take 8 hours or something to run each of the ones.
Yeah, so with replay, that should solve that problem because it uses muckers, and it's a simulator, which means that you can it doesn't have to be real time. Like you can speed it up.
Okay, so that can help us out with point one. So that can be done pretty quickly. And then pretty much the last thing is that if it generates a candidate, will that candidate run? And that's sort of the hard part, is because we actually need the hardware to prove that this will actually work. And I only have access to some SKUs, but if we're recommending GB200 or a ton of different other ones, we don't really have too much of a way to actually get a hold of that hardware and test it. So right now I'm kind of trying to do this manually or rework it to fit on H100s. But I think the point being is that we want to have a way to actually verify that whatever DGDR does end to end will work. And we want to be able to validate that it will before we merge PRs or ship a release, so we don't end up sending out something that's broken.
Makes sense. So
questions?
Yes.
I think a lot of this is going to change with the replay, Dynamo.replay coming in, right? So many of these cases will not happen. That's why we kind of roll back some of the PRs that me and Ashna were doing for the kills and everything, right, Hannah? I think we discussed this in a separate call. So yeah. I'm still curious to know the DGDR profiler changes that'll need to be done for normalization of the dynamic traces. I saw your dep. I saw the dep that Hong Kong actually brought in. But again, I saw the questions that you have raised, and I have similar questions. So not sure if you guys proceeded further from there, or if there's more.
Yeah, so I think the ETA, they're still a little later, just because both of them are currently at conferences and they're out. So I don't know. I'll check with them what the progress is, or if they have ETAs in mind.
Yeah, it's like an architectural diagram or more details on how things will change at the profiler side. What would be passed to the AIC? What would be so essentially replay is going to add some kind of it's going to add more time to this whole profiling and planning process, correct? We have to account for that as well, right? Because this is going to be there's not just this is a list of candidates that will be generated, and all the candidates DGD will be supplied, and correct. So it's a prioritized list, not just one candidate.
Yeah, so it's going to be a ranked list.
Right. Yeah, but I only went through the dep at a very high level, so I'm not sure exactly. I think it's quite a big change. So will be great if we can have access to the architecture changes, anything.
Yeah, so if we have a lot of changes coming in, do we have any plan to test them? I mean, they might fix a lot of the issues we have but it also might raise new ones. And I
Mhm.
think the main thing is well, we're gonna still be back to me or Anashna or whoever going through and trying to validate each of these cases individually, or do we sort of have some way to make sure that things work before we
Mhm.
get things to a working state before we try to add new features?
Mhm.
I think we don't want to just be like putting out fires every time we ship something, and I think the 1.0 release was really rushed. We pretty much like merged everything in by the deadline and sent it off to QA. So do we have any way to, or is there any plan to test these new changes? Do you guys have access to large clusters with like 16 or 32 nodes?
To that question, yes. Or yes, we have access to various different clusters and we can test on them. Yeah, everything we're talking about so far, I'm like writing up and I will send it out to the engineers.
Mm-hmm. So would you like if we I don't know how much of this is merged, but would we be able to go through and test some of these scenarios, or you guys or whoever's working on this?
Yeah, let me
I think the main thing is we want to validate this end to end. So like when we have the sort of value prop of you can have a one-click, intent-driven deployment that takes you from pretty much a minimal spec to generating. Doesn't have to be like the most optimal DGD deployment, but it has to be a working one. I think that's the main thing we want to guarantee. If it doesn't work, then you're kind of we don't really deliver on that. So and ideally, maybe we can do this in parallel. We can try to. I was working with Ashna on adding some end-to-end tests, and I think you saw this when we were refactoring Indigo. But just to add some end-to-end coverage for the DGDR life cycle, so that life cycle goes from the creation of the spec to going through the profiling, generating the candidates, running the candidates, and expecting that the deployments for the DGD are going to be online, so we can say like verify the replicas and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we want to set this up so that when we can validate whatever features we change to the profiler or to the operator, that it does not introduce any regressions. And also this makes it easier so that you don't have to run a script every time to go through each of these manually. Ideally, each of these scenarios should be covered in a test spec.
This sounds like another design proposal, maybe how to test those things and like write something down about what is the systematic way to do that and where's the hardware we can use. And
yeah, but I'm very curious to know the end-to-end changes, right? Like there's this, the depth seems to cover a lot of changes, but not specifically all of them, especially the part where profiler code will change and all of that. The normalization tooling or whatever requires to be added and integrated and all of that. So just curious if Hong Kong is working on some code changes in a separate branch. Hannah, you know about that? We can also look at it.
Let me ask and get back to you.
I pinged him as well. I realized he's traveling. Understood. Yeah. Okay. We can probably wait for next week.
so maybe I can ask the question. So I put on the agenda the question about EPP and Gateway API inference extension. as you know, we have moved to V1 Beta 1 in the APIs and now also in the controllers. Controllers write V1 or operate on V1 Beta 1 objects. And there's one change, like the type of a component now is not only worker, but can be prefill and decode. And we put a type annotation, not annotation, a label on pods, basically through the all the different mechanisms to deploy pods. And the inference pool of the EPP, of the inference extension, selects the worker nodes by that label, and this label changes. So it has changed on main. The type is not worker anymore. It can be those two values, prefill and decode. And we are selecting on class, not type anymore for that reason, because class is now the worker value as before. The consequence is that if you use EPP in any production or near production setup, this is kind of disruptive because old pods don't have the wrong labels, and you inference pool comes up and does not see the pods anymore. So our current stand is this is not a problem because nobody has EPP in production use. And this is basically the question. If this is the case, we can do the easy route and just update labels. If there is production use and this is painful, we have to invest much more into a graceful transition. So the question is, anybody using EPP already?
Eric, did you have any thoughts about this one?
Second.
Eric works on some of the EPP stuff, so I was wondering if you had.
But is it used in a production setting? This is the question.
I'm not familiar with any specific users who are using it in production on my own.
Okay.
I'd have to assume. Yes, I'm sorry. Are we talking just about the Dynamo EPP or?
Yes. Not the new one, the Rust one, but Golang, the old Golang one.
I see. Yeah, I'm not so familiar.
Yeah, we're not running it on production. So if that answers this question, but you might want to check with Anish.
I did. I asked him, but he was
cool.
also not sure. That's why I'm asking here. So if nobody speaks up, we will basically do the hard shift to the new labels, and those deployments, they will recover eventually, but the rollout is not graceful. Like you lose capacity for the rollout period. That's the consequence. All right, that's all I wanted to ask. Any more topics you want to talk about?
Hannah, quick question. When is the GGDR, redesign targeted to complete? Like, is there a timeline?
I have asked like the people working on it, so I'll get back to you, or I'll have Hong Kong like give more updates in our shared Slack.
All right, no new questions, no new topics. And I guess we all get 15 minutes, 18 minutes back. More time.
Oh,
thank you.
I had maybe we could go. This is for the docs meeting, but I was working on a PR for refactoring the docs sidebar. We were talking about it in the Slack channel. I think Dan said he wanted this to go into like a DEP or something instead. Did you guys have any thoughts on what the docs sidebar organization should be? I think I'm still trying to wrap my head around what's a good way to separate the sections so it's clear in terms of what is, like an action oriented in terms of like a tutorial or a usage guide versus reference and versus like knowledge or conceptual information. I just got to put something out there with that PR, but it seems like if there's some pushback, we might need to reconsider.
Can you paste it into the documents, agenda document? So I think people can just jump onto that.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do this async. It doesn't have to go. Don't have to go over this now, but this is also in response as well to some of the feedback we got from QA that the docs didn't really have any. The docs didn't really have much of a flow or structure, and it mixed up a lot of critical deployment information with prose and with technical reference. So yeah, I'm gonna just drop this in the agenda quick, or I can drop it in the chat. And there's also a issue I opened about this is about refactoring the Kubernetes docs input, but I pasted the feedback from QA about the 1.0 release. So the main things with the main feedback we got was that DGDR didn't work and the docs were pretty unclear. So those are the sort of main larger things I wanted to address with the issue I opened earlier that you mentioned, and also this idea to refactor the sidebar. But yeah, that's it for me. If we want to wrap up.
Yeah, sounds good. So I added the link to the agenda so people have it there. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Last chance for more topics. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.